All right, here we go.
Yeah, I can do it. Just
Yay.
message me like the. What time do you usually do it? It's fine. I can just work around it.
It's usually the same time we usually do that. The usual episode.
All right, we're live.
Okay.
Hey, we're live.
Yay.
Hey, we're finally live. I'm gonna bring this up.
All right.
I think I'm gonna bring this up.
All right. So Misty,
All right.
move over onto the couch. Yes.
She's gonna limp her way to the couch.
You guys can all see my ass for a second.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
So we're in An Tir.
Macy says hi.
Why don't you go do that trick? I will be right back.
So while Rifkin takes our special guest Maisie off to her room there. Hey everybody, welcome to the Coach's Corner Friday night. Sorry we had to delay things a little bit. We everybody was out fighting today, so we kind of wanted to take a little extra time to let everybody kind of get in and get settled. So thank you all for joining us. This is the first time we've done this, but we figured since we had some of our coaches here that we would go ahead and do a live episode and maybe take some questions from some of the folks we've got here. And I know people are getting food over there, so let's see them back over in the corner there. Everybody say hey. Hey. Wave and say hi. Right on. And so yeah, we're doing a practice up here in the Pacific Northwest up at Sir Raukkinn's house. And caveats and disclaimers, one of the requirements for being at this practice, we're all COVID vaccinated, so we're not taking any unnecessary risks just to get our stick on. So all having a good time so far. There was quite a bit of fighting that happened today. I got in a little bit late, so we'll probably have some folks talk about their day. And tonight we have Sir Rauokinn. It's on one of these feet, and Baroness Sadb joining us, and Louis here as well, and a bunch of other folks. For those of you who are not familiar with Sadb, I just wanted to mention that she's one of our admin folks on the back end of the Coach's Corner who really kind of keeps us organized. She is the one that is organizing and then she leaves. She's organizing the library that we have. She's the one that's really kind of put all the links together for that, as well as the book list that we have. So really appreciate all the effort that she does for us, and she fills in occasionally for Vesper when we need to do the broadcast there. So yeah, thank you all for joining us, and let's see what we got.
All right. Well, one of the things that we thought we would talk about is when you have sort of like a big practice like this, or an unofficial fight practice, or a big interkingdom thing, is there's all these interkingdom anthropology differences, and you have to think about calibration and what's polite and what's not polite, and sort of how you navigate that. So we thought maybe we could start there.
Yeah.
I
did in fact run into that today when I got stabbed in the side of the head. And fortunately we had talked about this before, or I would have had no idea that is a good shot here. So I almost was calling it off, and I was like, no, we do that here. Okay.
Yeah, we take the stab everywhere in An Tir.
And in Mid-Realm, the side of the head's no good.
Yeah. So yeah,
just little differences.
Because we're supposed to be wearing a Norman helm, right, with chainmail. And so a side of the head would be still a good blow. At least that's how we interpret the rules up here. So
yeah.
Anyway, one of the big differences, An Tir is very Western tradition kingdom, and so taking arms up here is considered impolite. So we have people up here from kingdoms that's not impolite, and that's perfectly acceptable. So
yeah, we will totally hunt down the arm. If you're gonna stick it out there, I'm gonna cut it off.
Yeah, he's gonna cut it off, and but if I cut your arm off accidentally, I'm gonna match you, which you won't match me. So
yeah, I wasn't sure what to do with that today.
It's somewhat situational, I think.
Has it changed much on here?
It is evolving because we've gotten such an influx of people from Aiden and pretty much Aiden.
Aiden is a place.
We had him aboard for a while. He was from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so the shield conventions have relaxed a little bit, and that has relaxed a little bit, but you get somebody that's on tier 4 and bred, and it comes right back.
Yeah, it's changed a bit in the West too, I think. Like certainly when I started in the West in 03, 04, like under no circumstances should you ever swing at anybody's arm. And if you do hit them in the arm, you should apologize and then put your shield behind your back. Right? That's just how we did it. And then it's sort of, it's been very, I mean, that was 15 years ago, right? Like it's a little bit different now. It's very rare for anyone to, what I would say, like a hunt an arm, which would be to maneuver someone so that they expose their arm and then hit it. But what started happening in the West, I think in An Tir a little bit too, is that when arms are ignored, people stop swinging at them. And so people tend to post their elbows up.
Walk with it.
And so like lots of people did, like really, and actually it was the better fighters were better at it because they were subconsciously like just drawing their elbows forward. And then everyone else was like, well, I'm not allowed to hit that. And so somewhere around like the 2010s, it became more like, look, I'm going to swing at your head or your body. And if your arm gets in the way, like that's on you. Right. And I stopped dropping my shield when I hit people on the arm a while ago. And then to make it less awkward, I would almost always yield when I got hit in the arm. Like, because you don't want to be in a situation in a tournament where this happened to me in this recent
You yield in a
propose.
tournament though.
Oh no, I actually just did this
Really?
in the first opened up propose. So
I mean,
propose
this isn't
304.
I'll take your arm home with me.
No, but
We'll get into that whole yielding thing in a second.
The first like propose 304, I'm fighting Duke Fabian in finals, right? And I leg him and he hits me right in the arm. And I'm thinking, well, number one, if I drop my if I don't drop my shield and then I hit him in the arm one round later, I am not going to look like the most popular fellow. And propose is also very much a old school traditional thing. Like you hit people in the arm, you're super polite about it.
Yeah.
So he hit me in the arm. I thought about it for like a second and a half. I'm like, I yield to fight, your grace, right? And just moved on. And I'm fine with that. I don't need to fight Duke Fabian single sword. Like that sounds like a good way to bruise a rib, really.
Okay, so can
Like,
I escalate it?
yeah.
What if that had been crown finals? Because I think yielding the fight when you get your arm taken, like that's huge.
It is. Look, I'm not confident fighting left-handed single sword against like even remotely decent people, right?
But at the same time, you don't want to win crown because you took somebody's arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a spur of the moment decision then. Like, I know I might yield it. I might. Like I can't imagine dropping my shield
I
if I hit
can't
somebody.
imagine your opponent would want to win with a yielded
Right.
arm. They probably wouldn't let you yield it.
Yeah.
They would probably just say, let's start over. It was flat.
Yeah, it would be that can be there. I got in trouble when I was in Queen's Guard when I mentioned on some mailing list, like because we were the whole like there. I'm like, well, if you hit somebody in the arm and you don't want to fight single sword, just tell them it's flat. And Mari, who was queen, is like, you would deceptively tell your opponent that a shot was flat when it wasn't. I'm like,
It happens all the
It
time.
happens all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. No, it's totally reasonable. Because I mean, single sword is single sword. You want to fight single sword? Go ahead and do it.
Well, see, I train for it, so I'm
Yeah.
all about it. You get me single sword. I'm like, let's do this. My left hand knows what it's doing now.
Yeah.
So on the topic of yielding, you were gonna drag Sven in on something.
Oh no, that was Sean.
So-
That was not me.
All right. So, yo, Grace, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not answer and tradition that if you take if you take a leg or an arm, you offer your opponent an opportunity to yield the fight?
It's very much a tradition when I start in our kingdom. They like pushing that on people.
When you started in the kingdom, it was.
Yes.
Okay.
People still ask. We go. I'm not. If I took it on purpose.
And is it either arm or leg or
Yeah,
both, or
either
like
or.
either one?
Yeah,
It's
it's very common that they ask you to yield.
Straight to ground.
I usually tell
And
people
like,
like,
even
no,
in, even in crown, right?
yeah, hit me extra hard now. You know, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
about
like,
you.
I have a
So
question on
that's
that
not
thing.
condescending.
No, that's what they
So
do.
it's-
I took it as condescending when I was new for sure. I'd be like,
You want
It's
to what?
tradition to offer it But do people usually take that offer, or is it one of those
There's
where
a ton of
it's-
people who do. I'm not
Okay.
among them. I'm
Because
like,
I've heard some
nope.
people talk about that where they go, yeah, it's tradition, and that's like the polite thing to do
Certainly-
is offer it, and almost
certainly-
nobody actually accepts
Certainly
it.
was.
So-
It
can't say
certainly was.
That might have been somewhere else.
I don't know. I don't follow it. I'm like,
Stepping
nah.
in and changing traditions.
I'm not about it. If I take it out, it's mine.
I
don't
get
take
it.
out. And you know, I used to hit arms a ton. I haven't actually hit people in the arms in the last 4 or 5 years. People were didn't like it, you know, because I got a pretty good flat snap, and
Kind of
so
sucks getting
I pretty much overly avoid arms unless people are hanging it out there. Like today, I told several people, hey, I feel like your arm's out there pretty bad. I'm like, I may pop it once, just like, you know, like you're guarding with it. But either way, I just generally don't hit people in the arms anymore.
So somebody's asking if they missed introductions, and we did do some introductions, but I don't think we did all of them. So this is
Go around
Baroness
the room.
Sadb from the middle, Sir Louis from the middle, Viscount Sigurfrith from the west, Duke Sean from Artemisia and everywhere, and Duke Sven from Anstioria. And can I do the little Sven cheer? Sure. He's here, he's there, he's every fucking where, Duke Sven. Anyway, all right, so
There's so many.
Well,
of
and
them.
I'll point out too that Louis and Sadb are currently Baron and Baroness of Roaring Wastes.
that was
in,
unintentional slight. Sorry.
in the mid round. So
You're
yeah,
also
Baron,
Baron.
but you know, I just kind of figured. Yeah, currently landed. So yeah, they have other jobs to do besides this whole Coach's Corner thing.
But we're happy to be here.
Yep, likewise.
Right.
Yeah, the so as an outsider for that whole like arm hunting thing, there was the observation that Sig had made that there comes that point where somebody's like, oh, you can't take my arm because it's unchivalrous. So
I don't think that ever happened. I think it was very subconscious.
so that was an outside observation.
Yeah.
From
I don't consider arm hunting in that. It was more like arm farming, you know. I'm just gonna
If you-
take
if
it
you're
with me.
gonna plant that
Eventually,
seed.
You'll put the thing away. You know? Not to mean I go looking for it. but you'll stay alive.
It's a distinction.
You're just hanging it out there.
Yeah.
So you're
Like,
saying
hey,
it's more
buddy.
like gathering than it is
Yeah.
hunting.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
put that in the bag, put that in the bag. Eventually, you're like, you know what? I don't like feeding it.
Well, and your husband was just telling us about that last night. Is a lot of people, you know, okay, the stance is supposed to be sort of back here, actually behind the shield, and then when no one's going for arms, it just sort of over time
Well,
becomes this.
So
another thing that sort of happened in An Tir is because nobody would let you take your arm, like they sort of became invincible,
Oh,
which is not a very cool thing either. But really, with the influx of people from other kingdoms, like our traditions are really changing, and it's good because we have these customs that aren't laws or that they aren't rules, but they're customs, and sometimes they're enforced and sometimes they're not. And so when we go other places or people come in, we don't know how to deal with the stuff that isn't polite here, like big shields and putting, crossing the knee line and hunting arms. So in a way, I think it's good to put some of that aside and learn how to deal with it.
I got a great example of that. I was at Whipping Winds a couple of years ago. I was king of Artemisia and was fighting some of the Avacal folks. And we were running some folks down and they ended up on their ass. And I said, get on the ground. Right? Which apparently, like in the response that I got back from one of their knights was, that's not cool. So I was at the Great Desert War, the precursor to Australia. I was at the one where we had people that would fall on the ground and were literally getting their heads beaten into the ground while they were flat on their back. And that's when the down on the ground became a thing, right? And it was literally a safety sort of thing where somebody falls down on the ground, they're not able to defend themselves, and you beating their head on the ground is really just flat out dangerous. And so we started doing dead on the ground. And so having kind of seen that whole thing happen and knowing why that rule exists, like that's always been a thing to me is when somebody falls on their ass or they fall down, you're dead on the ground, and it is a safety concern. But apparently our brothers to the north view that as like, so I guess I don't know, maybe this is an An Tir thing. And it's if somebody falls over, the polite thing to do is to back off of them and let them get up.
Okay, so if they're on the news already. No?
No.
They're
If
falling.
they
They're
fall-
falling.
If they fall down,
In a-
like if
in a-
they're
in a
on their
battle.
ass,
Melee.
they've fallen over in a melee.
Oh.
This is strictly melee fighting.
Yeah, I'm
Right?
the wrong person to ask because I am not a melee.
I've never seen that.
Like I've never
I love-
heard
I
of
love melee.
this on
Matt,
the ground
you
thing.
know,
I couldn't
I've seen,
imagine.
I've
seeing
seen it in
someone-
tons of places.
I've seen some where that certainly happens.
What?
I don't know that it's the regular or the always. I've definitely seen some man, if there's a charge coming through, who watch out and they just keep on moving right on along.
yeah.
But I mean, they want the safety to get someone out of the way, but I don't know how common it is.
I'm not trying to get back up and fight. Somebody knocks me down. I'm like, it's good. It's getting hit prone as a two-sword guy. It's super unpleasant. So I'm like,
Yeah.
HDR roll has dead on the ground or not? No, yeah, so that's
But
actually,
if somebody calls me dead on the ground, it's good.
You're-
for me.
you're fine,
I've,
yeah.
I've seen it in Australia and a few other places. I've tried Outlands.
Yeah.
And it was just
I'm okay with it.
it was just one of those super weird things. Like I've always done it because, and to me, it was totally normal because I saw how bad it can be when somebody's on the ground, they get their head beaten into the ground.
You got hands.
I've seen it happen
down,
in
look
Pennsy.
back.
Yeah, right. And and so I do the thing, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm like,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm like down on the ground, like no big deal. They're like, that's not cool. I'm like,
I'd rather not be hit prone, so I'm okay
Yeah,
with
so-
it.
what's funny is that, so like dead on the ground and dead from behind go together, right? Every kingdom that has one has them both.
Right.
And I fought
I've never heard of either.
a million
Just now.
in a, really,
Not
so it's
heard
it's the same
Never
line
heard
as the thrust beside of the head.
Dead from
Rocky, the
It's the Rocky Mountains.
it is Rocky
We
Mountain.
run up
line,
behind them,
absolutely.
get their attention and get them to
Mississippi.
turn around and then fight them.
No, Outlands has it.
Yeah, you're right.
Or you
Yeah,
run up and like
yeah.
foul their weapon
Actually,
from behind because it's
Callan
not attacking
Tir
them.
is
there's a story I'll tell you later about that.
so, but like, and having fought for years with both, like, dead from behind is stupid, but dead on the ground is great, right? Because dead on the ground solves melee problems, which is what happens is people lose their heads, they don't know what's going on, right?
Or
So
falters charges because people go prone. You
Right.
gotta wait and be like, so just
it does,
tell them dead and keep rolling. You know.
battles work much better if you can just clear the chaff away. But that, but I can see someone saying, I have absolutely heard people say when they kill people from behind, hey, why you kill people from behind, man? It's not
Yeah.
cool. Because people, someone will be like, oh wait, you don't have to hit them. They'll like run around and sneak and haha, got you. Right? Nobody likes that. And so I could see it translating from people's, because there are a lot of people who don't call people dead from behind in the West.
Well,
Or-
and
or
the
on
biggest
Twitter.
problem with dead from behind is people do it wrong.
Oh, it's
And like they just want to run down a line of people and tap people
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
no, that's-
you're
yeah.
dead,
That's
you're
not
dead,
what
you're
it is.
dead, you're dead, you're dead. And the way that the rule is stated is you have to control them.
Right.
You have to like put your sword in front of their face and say you're dead from behind. I mean, it has to be, which, you know, from a tactical perspective is kind of inconvenient because yeah, when I roll in and I've got everybody's back to me, it would be super handy to just like kill as many people as I can. But yeah, but the way those rules work, and you do, yeah, people are like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, which is just as bad.
yeah.
So in the mid realm, we have to have engagement. So it has to be eye contact and there's some kind of a visual engagement.
So
So-
once your lines are engaged, then it says a lot of people just hit you in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What happens
Twice
when someone
this
just
long
won't make eye
fucking-
contact?
I've been hitting the back plenty.
They get away with it.
Engaged line.
Yep, that's the thing is if
That
you're
is
engaged, if
frowned
you're,
upon and discouraged.
It's super common there. You're like, I was engaged. I'm okay with it.
yeah, we've got the same thing. If you are engaged online, if there's a shield wall and that wall gets engaged, you can get hit from anywhere because you should have an awareness of threat.
Yes.
Usually just get knocked down, like they'll knock you prone, you know. Get up. You're like, I'm good.
So on this inner kingdom anthropology thing, I want to like circle back around to pickups and tourney fighting for a second, because this is going to be real relevant for me tomorrow. What is y'all's advice to people that are maybe going out of kingdom for the first time to one of these and may not realize that there's all these little differences for like how to navigate that and not make an ass of yourself or piss everyone
I'll
off
go first.
or
Yeah,
get
Bob.
pissed off?
So Astoria has we only had knee walking in the last 5 or 6 years. Like before then, you really couldn't adjust. So a lot of our kingdom when you get leg, we let you go down, right? We let you settle. And so we don't swing usually after you get leg. So I tell people generally, like, hey, if I leg you, I'm gonna let you go down and let you get settled. Because if you're swinging on the way down, I'm gonna do the same thing to you. You're probably not gonna like that a two sorter is doing it with a step. You're not gonna have fun. So I tell people like, hey, just be aware. I'm gonna let you fall, get comfortable, and we'll re-engage. And then we do Texas is more rubbing is racing, a lot more in the center, press on you, a lot of denying and just beating you. Like basically, I feel like in Austria, they're not taking your wallet. They're probably not fighting you from the ground well. So it's unpleasant. So I let people know I'm okay with good shield contact,
Warn
hooking,
people.
or body pressing. It's all super common back home. Some people, not a fan.
I just think communication.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
just say I'm not from here, I'm from wherever, and if I do something weird that you think is weird, like, let's talk about it, don't take it the wrong way, or,
Yeah,
yeah,
it seems like a
that's-
pretty good catch-all way to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
An Tir is not used to the step up on, like, they're more like playing of the knee.
Yeah.
we are.
So-
It's
Yeah,
impolite to put your foot
absolutely.
between our knees.
And that's a Western tradition as well.
It's against the rules. for
Mid
this.
round is don't care. That goes just right.
I'm not
Get
actually
right
sure
there.
right now if it's
Yeah.
a rule or a
It's just a
convention for
convention.
us.
And just so people know what we're talking about with that, plane of the knees is if you have somebody that is legged, as you advance on them, your foot cannot go past their plane of the knees. So wherever their knees are, you draw like an infinite line, and your foot can't go past.
Not only that, but we don't corkscrew either.
Yeah, we don't
So
either.
we're allowed to take one step past the plane, throw something in, then we have to come
Exactly.
back
Yeah.
and reset.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can't go, especially on the outside, you can go in west and Ontario, you can go past the knee plane on either side, but you can't then bring your other foot and
You can't camp out
you can't redirect them.
because that gets into corkscrew.
Yeah, exactly. Although a corkscrewing has got to be the most, because we like on our show, we study this like all over the place. It is the most weirdly, irregularly called thing ever. Like you see someone like little moving them around, and you're like, isn't that corkscrewing? Oh no, it's not corkscrewing because they were allowed to adjust.
It's like, is there anywhere where corkscrewing is actually allowed?
No, but no one can agree on what it is, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that you just kind of realize. I mean, again, it's just impolite, right? I mean, it's like you don't want to, you don't want to like spend some. And again, terminology for people that are not familiar with the term corkscrewing, it's where when somebody's on their knees and you are standing over them and you basically run them in circles like a corkscrew. It's just rude. But there are circumstances where the fight kind of leads that way and the opponent adjusts, and that's a little harder to like classify, I guess, as corkscrewing. But I guess we all just need to have a better awareness of, it's just like you don't want to put yourself, your opponent is already in a compromised position, and you don't want to take further advantage of that by putting in the position where they constantly have to adjust to where you're stepping. And I think that's kind of
So,
the gist of the.
Coming off of that, something that is sort of has some large gray areas is range. And when somebody has a full weapon and they put a sword shield fighter on their knees,
That's why I've never lost a brand in the tournament,
okay.
because he always legs me and then he closes where I leg him back. I think if you fight with a pole weapon in a tournament,
But you've earned your advantage, right? You've
I think you
earned
should.
that
No, but
range.
that's what I'm saying. Is like you should just be able to
But
kill
people get really pissy about it.
people don't like losing. I don't know what to say. Right? Like I don't like
I
losing.
mean, it's true.
Suck less.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that has a big issue with that, because I know there are people that do not like to just keep getting tanked with the blade and
Don't get legged.
So if you're legged, how about in this kingdom, can you advance on your knees?
yes.
And you're saying that's a new thing in this tour,
Yeah, last pictures.
because if you are legged,
Before you could move at all, like you were down unless somebody slightly corkscrewed you and could turn to adjust. Other than that, you were down.
but you can't advance on your knees.
You can now, but you could not up to like 5, 6 years. It's relatively new, so you see very little when you walk here.
So I'm gonna change the subject. how do you get the best feedback at like a big fight practice, a pickup, or big events or war? Like, let's say you're doing a shiv hunt or whatever, and you want relevant feedback.
Tell them what you're looking for before the fight starts. You say, hey, this is what I want. You know, they ask you, and I was like, respond, what kind of fight do you want? You want a training fight? You want a good fun fight for you, or do you want to get blown up? Like, what are you looking for, right? Like, what are you
I
expecting
got
from
options.
this?
I don't want you to demoralize me.
What kind of feedback? Listen, some people don't want to be down off, and I gotta tell a lot of people, like, I want you to have a good time. I'm just gonna hit you in the body and the arm, and you're gonna be unpleasant. Other than that, what are you looking for fighting me? And then I'm gonna give them feedback, you know, like how I think you should hold your shield or what they want, you know, because a lot of people don't want unsolicited feedback. So I just go, what are you looking for from me? Because otherwise, you don't have a good day or bad day.
Yeah, I think that's important to be upfront about what you're looking for. And well, and the hard part of that is a lot of people who
No.
they just don't know. They just don't know. I mean, you know, when me and Sven fight, you know, we're like, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's blow it up, you know. But you know, when we first met at Penzic, he came out and said, hey, can I join this thing? He was very clear in he was looking for feedback. He was looking for you know,
Hard passes. I want to, you know,
Yeah.
like, put the wood to me. That's
Yeah.
what I was like. I introduce people by beat me up.
Yep.
But that's what I do.
Yeah,
It was like,
absolutely.
The woodshed is over there. Let's go visit.
Exactly. And he was, and to his enormous credit, Sven was very clear about that at the beginning. And you know, when it was just the three of us out there, me and Timmer and Beck, and he's like, you know, hey, I'm just the King's champion. Don't mind me.
I'm a
You know-
slow learner. I prefer to get beat on. a little
You
bit.
know what I need? I need a good old fashioned ass whooping. And you guys seem like just the kind of folks that can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, but not everybody is confident or like accepting of that level of play, if you will. And so, you know, for those mid-range unbelted fighters, if you're coming to a practice of this caliber where there are so many options to choose from, you just need to do your best to communicate. And and it can start with, I have been fighting for X number of years. I am squired to or dependent to this particular fighter. You know, because I've got my squire Daniel over here, who is out fighting today. And when my squire comes out to a practice like this and says, I'm squired to His Grace Sean, most of these guys know. Yeah, I'm gonna get my lickings in now. They know that I expect of them to give them a certain level of education. And you know, I have communicated with my squires. You let these people know what you want, what you're capable of, and you know what you can handle. And so yeah, communication is just huge, and just being able to say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I can handle. And you know, careful what you wish for.
And if you don't know, say you don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be the first advice to give people? You know, and that way you kind of let you have an idea of what they want.
So for me on that one right now, today, this was that. This was it was a lot of, I just want to fight. Like, this is pandemic. This is I'm dying to get into some fights and some league fights. And so today was just bring it. This was just go into a fight, bring your best fight, and let's see how I do with it. And as far as feedback, tomorrow will be the day for those conversations on feedback on specific things that I'm working on at the moment. But today was just bring it. Let's just go. Let's just knock some rust off, have a good time, and we'll count my bruises when I shower later.
So one thing that I would like to say that I think a lot of people sort of failed at when they did the shiv hunt is that they would ask for the feedback after they did the set with the knight. And if you wait until after to let them know that you want something from them, you're going to get garbage feedback.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in a number of your interviews, and I think it's hugely important because not all trainers are created equal, And when you go out to a practice like this, or to an Australia or Great Western or Pennsic, if you're fighting an upper level fighter, if you don't tell them what you're expecting, and then after the fights are over, you say, what do you see? Some people are not prepared for that. And so if you can kind of go into it and say, hey, look, when we're done fighting, I would like some feedback. It kind of like, for those people who are not ingrained as trainers, I mean, because when I do pickups with people at all of these things, somebody is learning something. And yeah, it's usually me teaching, but I am totally open to the fact that somebody's going to put the wood on me, and I'm going to learn something, even if you're not. Somebody's learning something. But sometimes you got to lay that out, and you got to actually ask that in advance, because again, when you come back to that later, you say, what do you see? You're like, I don't know what I'm looking for.
Well, right. And sometimes, I'm there for me.
Yeah.
And I'm working on stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not really paying too much attention to what you're doing. I'm just trying to find the holes or whatever I'm working on. And then you ask me afterwards, and I'm like, well, if I had known that you wanted feedback, I would have paid attention.
Even some of the newer knights, for example, if you tell them that you're looking for feedback, then maybe they're going to want to try to test you on a couple of things that they're familiar with on how to give feedback for, as opposed to just feedback on what happened.
Right. They can give you something that they
Maybe they want to pressure you some different ways and see how you react to things, and then that'll help them give you some feedback.
So sort of the flip side to that is, and I think we were talking about it last night, is how not to be rude when you're doing like a shift hunt. Yeah. So you want to talk about that?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so having a shift on, I mean, challenging yourself to fight a lot of new people and to meet people, talk to them, I think that's great. It should be a challenge, but sometimes I've had the experience before where somebody's come up to me and fought me, and then a few months later I saw the same person, so I said, hey, you want to have a couple passes, and at that point they're like, you're already on my list, and they just went off to the next person. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, there was a missed opportunity there.
Yeah.
So like the foundation of a shiv list or a shiv hunt is to, one, meet people, right, and network, to get feedback, and the best way to get feedback is to fight someone again 2 months later, and then they can tell you.
Right.
It's
That's
really
a
get into that since I
Sure.
did the shit
You have
hunt.
to, if you haven't been introduced yet, please introduce yourself before you speak.
All right, I'll come sit over here in Sean's spot for a second. I'm Kellen Ratslayer, and I actually did the shiv hunt a couple of years ago, and it was a really great experience for me. But every time I went into a fight, the first thing I would say to the person is that, yes, I am doing the shiv hunt. Are you okay with that? I would like to do 3 to 5 passes with you, and then I would like some advice from you and have you sign my book. And everybody was really wonderful about it. But what was nice is because I had my book and I did more than signatures, I got information from them. If I went and I fought that person at a later date, I could go back and look at my book and say, well, we had talked about this. Did I improve on it? And so I would have a secondary thing to look at and saying, yes, I did work on this. I did make improvements on it. And it was a really amazing experience for me for 2 reasons. I got to meet a whole bunch of different people, and it actually instilled confidence in myself that I never had before, because not only was I learning things I was doing wrong, I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I really was actually doing right that I didn't realize it. So that's what I really liked about the ship hunts. So I'm gonna leave now.
I think they're a great thing. Like, I just think that when you're doing them, you have to realize how people are taking the interaction, and you have to be courteous. I mean that, and realize like, what's the foundation? Like, what is the reason? It's not to get as many names as possible. It's to get better, right?
Yeah, that's it. I have a question from the unbelt end of this,
Sure.
sort of looping back into the last 2 topics. So if I am, Unbelt Joe and I am running into you at some big event and doing a shiv hunt or just a fight practice or whatever, and you've never met me before and you may never see me again, but I say, hey, I'd like feedback. How do you decide what kind of feedback to give to someone for that like one-time interaction? Because I've had people before that were like, oh, well, you should change all of this, that just completely fundamentally changes your fighting style. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. So
I'll go first because I have a unique fighting style, and it comes with its own problems to learn to fight me. That's why I tell people, I was like, this will help you against most two-sword people, right? I was like, because I'm like, you can't do this, or this. Like, we have hard rules for things to learn and how you have to stand. And a lot of people have a hard pill to swallow. They're like, I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm like, I'm not telling you have to. So it's your best opportunity to fight against like what I do. And so I tell a lot of people the same thing. You're too long, you're waiting for long. And so like when you came over to our house, we talk about how we teach the swing and the throw. It's very different than France's jabby style and how you do it. But you gotta understand what you approach.
yeah.
Like you're not gonna learn to fight like tall people, or they all have their intricacies. You just gotta take the feedback for what it is.
It is true that, I mean, someone I think who is trying to help you can look at someone and fight them a little bit and be like, I don't understand what you're trying to do because your style is not my style, right? And they should tell you that, like, this is what, but they can also say like, well, when you do this, this is how I try to attack this. I don't like if you could just not do that, but that would be not you, right? You can't like looking at you guys like you guys should really not fight an A, right? Like it's sort of like you're not really, or like you should use a shield, right? Like it's not really helpful, right?
I've had someone tell me that I should like completely change to a sideways stance, and I'm like, that's just not a thing that's
Sword
going to
foot
happen.
forward.
So I think a good trainer asks you, like I'll be like, what thing are you working on? Or I'll say, let's fight a couple, and then I can see something that stands out, and then I'll ask, and if you'll say, oh, that's not how Baroness does it, I'll be like, cool, you go with Baroness.
I'm blessed like Sean that we've done so much traveling. Most of the time, I know who's teaching them, so I can recognize what they might thought they should be doing. To talk about it. But some of that is exposure.
No, yeah, I mean, I was talking to my squire Agnes just over the weekend. By the way, she says hi.
I can't wait to meet her.
And and it's been really interesting throughout the pandemic being able to have Baroness and the Roaring Waste practice online every Sunday, and she's doing all the footwork stuff that he's doing, and I was kind of talking to her about the stuff that I want her to be working on, and like we had that discussion. Baroness's footwork is very different from my footwork, but I'm like, but what is the commonality? What is the thing about what both of us are doing that is the same? And ultimately that comes down to controlling the fight, controlling the terrain, controlling where the fight happens. Baroness uses his footwork to control the terrain very differently than I do. And there's not anything wrong with either of those approaches, but like, where do you find that commonality? When you can find what is the same, and that is going to be gross concept, not fine motor skill sort of thing, right? Because how we control terrain and how we control the fight, I do it from, I think, a much more offensively minded perspective. Baroness and Ronvalder tend to do that from a defensively minded perspective. I think you do as well, Sven, because coming from the foam fighting, like you said, I'm gonna get hit. Like I'm just not going to be there when the sword comes in, right? And I look at it from that Musashi perspective of everything you do is part of the act of killing, right? Whereas even with defensive-minded fighters, Lucan is very much the same way too. There is, and Thorin's very much the same way too. It's, I am going to do enough defense to make you chase me, and then you're going to stick something out, and I'm going to cut it off. But it's a very different mindsets, and but there there are things about what Baroness and I both do that Agnes can use to get to the same core concept, which is controlling the fight.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I like that.
So Baroness asked, like, how do you find out about these big fight practices? And that sort of goes into a topic that we had sort of brainstormed last night, was like how to manage relationships in order to get the best opportunities. It's really like, these things are never, well, I won't say never, usually not exclusive. You just have to network with people and know people. And the more fighters, the better, really.
What?
So like stay in touch with all those shiv that you found on your shiv hunt. Actually talk to them and treat them like people.
Like I did the Duke hunt, right?
Mhm.
I've networked with these people,
Yeah.
and I still keep in touch with some of them. Like I'm not 100,
Yeah.
but
Dave, but when the opportunity presents itself, you got 100 people that are wanting to fight. Yeah. I know for us, we like for me, it started with, somebody says, "Hey, can I come out to your house and get some work in with you?" Like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And by the way, while you're here, let me introduce you to Greg, who's somewhere over there. Greg, Floki, Timmer, Lachlan. When people want to come to my house and do work with me, as flattering as that is, I'm so very proud to be able to offer to them as well, really some of the best trainers in the world, and people that are training focused, and be able to say, yeah, I'm happy to help you, but here are these other guys that are going to help you as well. And it starts small. It starts with somebody saying, hey, can I come out and do some work? And it's like, well, if you're gonna be in town, just throw it out there. And I think the biggest practice that we had at our house 6 years ago, 2015.
that was a fun time.
Yeah, and so the year before that, I guess 2014, we had that dude over there. Hey, Sven, come over here and say hi. Sven's eating it. So Sven comes out to practice, and oh, by the way, OG Sven, 2-stick Sven. We got 50% Sven here. We're missing Swedish Sven and lefty Sven.
Oh, we're good.
But we got enough Sven.
We got 50%.
So we're lousy with Sven. So we'd have Sven down for a practice at the house, and like right after that, I get no end of shit from people. They're like, "Well, how come I didn't know this was happening? I would have come to that. That'd have been awesome. I could have gone to that." I'm like, "All right."
It was super awesome.
It was. And then I'm like, all right, fine. Don't tell me you don't know about this. And so we put together another practice the year later, and I shotgunned it out to every list that I was on. And boy, if you build it, they will come, right? And we had literally, I counted 100 people fighting in my backyard at one point. And then on Sunday, we had another 70 at the park after that. And generally, like Misty said, that generally it's not exclusive, because these things are open, and really the only qualifier to, like, it's not even being invited, but like to get the benefit of something like this is you just need to be able to show up and be open and be willing to learn. And you will find, when we had that big one, Malcolm came out from Alpha Mark, and he was the one that really summed everything up perfectly when he said, there was a lot of lunch money changing hands throughout the day. Right? Because it's like you out there and beat somebody's ass and be like, it took him, and then turn around and there's somebody else that's just like totally put the wind to you. And that is the beauty about these types of practices, that there's so much information from everywhere. And when you have something like this, you can literally watch our sport evolve. You can watch our sport become better over the course of a weekend because of the free flow of information and the way that people are so generous in, like, hey, that seemed to work on me. How about this? So, we tend to put those things out there as much as we can. But to figure out how to get invited to one of these things, if you see that those things are available, just ask. Ask somebody that you know, or we have one set up for April of next year. There's a Facebook invite that's out there for it. If you send a link to somebody who's already in there, or you send a link to me, yeah, you're invited. It's open invitation.
If you don't know about it, PM Sean and he'll send it to you. But I just want to emphasize like two more things. Like the key is really traveling and meeting people. Like you need to travel, you have to get out of your place. And then you also need to be willing to put yourself out there and host things. Sometimes it won't be the most successful thing in the world, but then sometimes it is. So, when you just decide that you want to make something happen, you should just do it. I mean, that's like how I got to know Sean. I just said, come out to my house, please. I'll pay for it and I'll give you a whole bunch of beer.
And the answer was yes, absolutely.
That's kind of how Adult Swim got started. Tim came down and visited us and said, hey, I have a practice where you guys come up. And then I guess he called you and a few other people.
Yeah.
We're like, sure, well, I'll go. And once you know the other people you want to fight are going,
Yeah.
those people encourage other people.
Yep. And it becomes kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, Two Sticks Finn is going. You don't say.
I'm there.
It's not
I don't want to be demoralized.
That's
I
right.
want to feel new again.
You gotta create one
Yeah.
that's all the spends in one place.
And I think part of that too, I think to Misty's point was, if you're going to create something like that, if you're going to invite somebody to if you're going to host something of this nature, you just have to be comfortable with whatever you get. And just know that that's enough. And and if you get enough of those folks that show up, like if me and either of the fans are going to the same place on the same weekend,
That's enough.
you want to be there. You definitely want to be there. And it does. It's and I think Providera was kind of set up like that as well, in that the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, hey, all the best fighters are going to be here on this weekend to do this thing. It's like, oh, all the best fighters, you say? Well,
That's not a price.
No.
I gotta go.
Yeah, no, but it's
And you don't have to start like Adult Swim level. You can have like a regional practice and like network with the night marshals or the baron and baronesses of the different baronies in your region, and have a regional practice and start smaller and then build.
so one thing Leothal started doing in the West Kingdom was, because we have a lot of practices just sort of scattered out over a couple hundred miles. So like there's a once a month roadshow where we like everyone picks a practice, a weekend practice, like, okay, we're all going to San Ramon, right? We're all going to Napa, right? And then, you can't maybe every other month, like, but you can sort of self-collect. I mean, it's in kingdom, but at least that's the same concept.
So Baroness asks, where are some of the best places online to meet people and start networking?
The SCA Coach's Corner.
Brought to you by
the SCA Coach's
Great Fighters of YouTube.
Yeah, the Great Fighters of YouTube has been a wonderful networking tool.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
I have met lots of people there.
Yeah, and we mentioned this before, but when we set up the Coach's Corner, it's very much what this is, right? It's fireside chat. It's us having an opportunity to just sit down and talk stick. And so the SCA Coach's Corner group is a great place to meet new folks. If something like this is happening, like Adult Swim or spring training that we're doing next year, and I know I've posted it up there. We'll be posting it as soon as it gets closer. Those are some good places to find it. The Known World Virtual Fighter Practice page, where we're streaming live from now. Also a good resource for that. And just be engaged in those communities and ask around. And if you would be surprised at how generous people are when you just say, hey, can you come to my house? Or I'm having a practice here, are you interested in coming in? And again, throw it out there, make a practice, and see who shows up. Because you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised if you just reach out and invite some folks.
So one of the things I think a lot of people struggle with is how to be memorable in a good way. Like there are a lot of SCA fighter people who are sort of introverts.
Yeah.
And they struggle with like the social aspect. And if they're not the best fighter, you're not going to really remember them that way. So do you have recommendations or suggestions for somebody on how to be memorable in a good way so that they can network? He doesn't have
Nobody
to.
knows who I am.
It's not memorable at all.
Give the best fight you can. Give everything you can. That's what every time.
I think you show a great level of fighting, people will remember. You know,
Yeah.
that's how I got to know everybody. I went out there with no expectations, just to say, "What's up? I'm here to get whooped on. Let's have a good time."
Well, yeah. So when I met Sean, like we were at Estrella and we beat the crap out of each other until he had to go to court. And then he said, "Hey, do you want to go to surf and turf at my camp?" And I'm like, "We're best friends."
That's my guy.
And then it's like,
That's not exactly introverted though. That's tough. Like, how do you get an introvert?
Oh, yeah,
That's
I guess
a
that
really
doesn't
tough question. You're like, how do you get an
Well,
introvert to let?
I used to
honestly-
I'm kind of an introvert.
I used
So-
to not like. I still don't like when I talk to people unless I'm good at what I do, like for work or for this. Like I'm a huge book
Yeah.
reader. I don't socialize a lot, but all the people I'm really good friends with, I've met through
Sure.
work or fighting. Right outside of that, I do not socialize with a ton of people. But other people I meet fighting, they like the same thing as I like. You just gotta put yourself out there a little bit. You know, it's hard.
Well, and sometimes you need that conduit because Sven is a bit of an introvert and I'm a bit of an extrovert, and we had kind of been in similar circles for a long time, but had really not connected. And I was in Australia, and he was King's champion or Kingdom champion, and Skepti was king.
Yep.
And I had known Skepti for some time because he was one of those people that I connected with years before that. And Skepti's like, "Hey, I got this guy you got to fight." And yeah, so we just and he and I just unloaded on each other. And it was magnificent. And that's the thing. It's like sometimes it takes that conduit. It takes that person to go, oh, you know who you need to fight. And when that happens, when you have that opportunity, the answer is just yes. When somebody says you gotta fight this person, just jump right in there and understand too that the days of somebody beating on you just because they can, I think for the most part are long gone in the SCA. Most of the top shelf fighters that you're going to find in our society are genuinely interested in making you a better fighter. So don't ever fear like, I don't want to fight that guy because he's just going to beat my ass or he's going to hurt me or anything like that. It's like, they want to help you and they're willing to. And for me, getting the best advice and the best information out of somebody like us, I'm really not interested in how good a fighter you are right now. Don't come to me and think you're just going to lay a bunch of stick on me and whoop my ass and then I'm going to be impressed by that. You can hit me a lot and I'm not impressed. I'm much more impressed by your ability and your willingness to be taught and to want to learn more, because that feeds my soul. Like when I can help somebody become a better fighter, that's something that is intoxicating to me. And that's how you're going to get the information out of me. You're not going to get it from like, oh, well, yeah, I want to beat Sean's ass.
But that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you want to beat my ass and you just want to run around telling everybody you beat my ass, by all means, go ahead with your bad self. But if you want information out of me, it's that willingness to go to the woodshed and like win, lose or draw, and to when that fight is over, you say, what do you see? What can I fix? How can I be better? And it's just that humility, I guess. Cool. Mic drop.
What?
Mic drop.
So something that I struggle with is when I go to these things, I get feedback and then I feel like I'm rudderless and I don't know where to go. So how does somebody deal with that? Like Go ahead.
I'm Philip. I'm Sarpedon. Squire to Viscount Rorick out of the west. But the way I deal with that when I'm rudderless is I bring a notepad with me everywhere I go. Like I have 2 in my car right now. And what I do is when I go to a practice or any fighting event, I write down. It used to be just 2 to 3 things, but now it's like 3 to 4. So I write down about 4 things that I want to work on at a practice. And if I'm getting feedback on one thing, or I'm like, if somebody's telling me like, hey, your thrusts are really on point today. I'm like, okay, great. My thrusts are on point. What else did I want to work on? I just go back to what I wrote down, and then I can, reference that, because the paper is going to remember a lot longer than we will. So notepads and then continuously referencing my own notes is a way that I can keep my direction.
I also definitely have a notebook. Write down all of the important things that happened or feedback that was given. And still being a squire, I have the advantage of I take that to my knight later and go, can you help me sort of congeal all of this into something that makes sense? And how can I actually go forward with it? But when you're already a knight, you don't necessarily have a designated someone for that.
We use more like a polish and stone thing. You look for the 1 or 2 things that you're the worst at. I just don't have people work on that, so they're not the worst. And then you'll figure out what that is. And you'll work on those. People always like, I want to get better. Like, nah, you just want to suck less. Like you want to work on one thing, you want to suck a little less at that, and then your other thing, you'll suck a little less at that. And as you polish your little rock, eventually you'll just be better. And I was like, you can't look at that like I want to be better. You just pick what you're bad at, and once you're not bad at that, pick something else.
Then you're better.
Yeah, like, I was like, and it's usually 1 or 2 things. Like it's just don't overload yourself. Just pick something you want to be not bad at. And just work on that. If you're having problems, pick something else.
Well,
Don't multitask.
and it's cyclical
Instantly,
too.
yeah, see it because you'll pass that, but well, that sucks again.
And actually, in one of our earlier episodes, Eliyahu had kind of mentioned, I had always looked at it as cyclical, but Eliyahu had referred to it's helical, right? So it's as you get better at a thing, and then you get better at the next thing, and you just kind of keep getting better, and then eventually you come back to one of the first things, and and you've made improvement on that, and so you're higher up in that food chain, if you will, or in the helix, and then you work on that again. And I was talking to I was talking to Danny the other day about like my training methodology is kind of a slow burn. It's very much the Miyagi-Do karate version. It's a whole lot of my Cobra Kai back
So
there.
you make him clean your house.
Wax my cars, paint my house and all that. Get my Cobra Kai guy right there.
Eagle Fang now.
Eagle Fang guy back there. The Eagles have fangs? It's the slow burn where it's like it seems like a whole lot of work that initially seems fruitless, but you're just laying that groundwork and you're doing all that work early on, and then eventually once that stuff kicks in, and that learning curve just skyrockets, and because you laid that groundwork.
I feel like people think too much like what they need to work on. It's really like you just go back to the basics time and time again. It's the flat snap. It's singular things. Like
footwork. There's only so many directions you can move.
We literally teach footwork class. Like I tell people, we've been walking their whole life. Like once we get everything else right, the feet will fix themselves. Like it's usually a symptom of reaching, hunching. Like there's tons of things that are footwork really. Me teaching you to hop around like an idiot without all these other things, not what we need to work on first. Like let's worry about these other small things. Trust me, your feet will figure it out.
It's like Duke Radner calls it the bus stop stance. It's just the way you sit under the bus stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get comfortable. Your feet will figure it out. Trust me. Once everything else isn't
He's a
unpleasant.
snowflake though. That's you got to be careful with is like the people who are snowflakes about it. They're like, well, I just stand like I'm under a bus. Like, well, that didn't work for me, Radnor. About that guy for 10 years.
Really tried it? No.
You need to stand under a bus light more. That's your problem.
It could be
You need to stand under a bus light better.
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 Gotta work on it, man. Gotta work on your bus light.
My bus light
Your,
stands.
your bus stops.
It's funny.
All things are cyclical. Like anybody who
Yes.
thought my squires, a lot of them use the older senses that I did when I got here, 11 years ago. I have my hands and my feet that I've long since changed, and my newer squires fight more like I do, like Ozar and a few others. They fight like I do now. It's not like the older style is not successful or what it does, but I just changed it for different reasons because I wanted to. And I currently believe what I'm doing now is the best for what I do, right? We
Well,
fight
and also for the best
The
of your
most
body.
efficient.
but if you fight Ozar or Rags, they are fucking chainsaws. They will go super far, super fast, and then, but it's a different approach to the same thing, but it's close enough. You know, they take what the basic is, and
Well, the best part is when they take the foundation that you give them and then they make their own thing.
yeah, they build with it. You know, because they have different frames. There was
That's
you're not going to have a direct copy. If anything, I have like 9 super good 2-sword run guys running around, and they're all in various stages of completion, but it's not like they're all bad. That's for sure.
A copy of a copy is a copy.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad
No,
copy.
I just want to be clear that I was not throwing you in the snowflake. I looked right at you. I was like,
I was like,
you have a whole. That's true. I realize how this conversation started.
yeah, I was like,
Because you are in some ways that, I mean, all really good dukes have their own special thing that they do differently from else. But you trained what 9, 10 people to fight.
that's
with
here
that.
in the last 11 years.
Yeah.
In phone, there's probably like 30 guys running around with warlords that I've taught them with the
Right,
15,
exactly.
20
Like,
years
it's
I've played there. But it's a ground up system that
But to be clear,
Have
what
you-
he was saying was Radnor is the snowflake.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you. Yeah, no.
Do you think Radnor feels like a snowflake?
Oh, now we're just getting directly. Are you there, Dan? I saw him for the first time. Like I saw him for the first time in like 5 years. A couple weeks ago. No, I believe.
Good answer.
I believe Radnor has a like we all do in some way. He has a mental image of what fight should be like, and he attempts to epitomize that vision of what a fight is. And the way he does it is very different from everybody else. Very different. And there are very few people who he has trained that fight like him.
Baroness says you're in trouble and we should save you.
Oh no.
Thanks, bro.
No.
I'm well liked, so I have some capital I can exchange. But yeah.
So Baroness asked if there are any good stories or surprises today, like any word fame, name fame.
Sven's good word.
Everybody
Who beat your
fought
ass?
really good.
Who beat your ass today, Sven?
I think we all equally had a good time. I mean, I gave some shots and I got some shots. I can tell you this right now, though, it's very hard to sit right now in this chair. But,
I see.
I'm always learning.
I thought the attitude was outstanding today. Like legitimately,
I agree.
everybody was
Yeah.
having fun.
I pay all this money to come over with a bad attitude. I wanted to.
Well, except for you. Yeah.
And I think that's what I was getting at earlier, is that's what you get at this type of practice, is like everybody's just so giving of their information that like it's just a lot of fun. And you know, and I think Adult Swim is this way too. You can check your ego at the door, because there is so many people at something like this that, like I said, if you think you're the cock of the walk, you're gonna find out real quick that there's just somebody that matches up better against you. But I think overall, just the attitude of something of a practice of this caliber is just it's just wonderful. And for those of us who have been to a number of these things, we understand and appreciate that. It's like, oh, Sven's coming up. My ass book.
I mean, it was cool to see different styles. Like, I mean, Louis, like I've never seen that guy fight before in my life, and I was like, that was fun. That was awesome. Like, yeah, so.
Did you have about Ragnar?
No, him.
Oh, Louis? Yeah.
No, I don't even know who Ragnar is. Is that who
My-
is this
my
Ragnar you're
Ragnar?
talking
Oh, yeah.
about? Does he also fight Tuesday?
Sorry.
What do you do?
You can dodge him just like I'm gonna dodge him.
Oh, no.
Oh no, I think I
having trouble
fought him.
seeking.
It was just him and me. It was just us. We were the last two.
Yeah.
So
He was like, "I'll fight till you're done."
yeah.
That's what he said.
And then he said, I'm good. And then he walked off. So
Nice.
I was like, I was still there. I was still waiting.
Wait,
I was
he
like,
didn't
I can get
fight till
beat
you
up
were
all
done.
day.
Someone outlasted Ragnar.
No, he was like,
Did you tell him how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 63.
No.
Yeah.
Just coming out, play one fight at a time.
Yeah, one fight at a time. See what
I lived
happens.
through it,
Yeah.
literally. Not an art.
Yeah, I mean, Louis you were squared to Baroness, right?
No.
But you're
Trains heavily with him.
trains heavily with him. But even though he's like in that environment, your fighting style is still going to be very different from
It's quite different, yeah.
from Baroness. Yeah.
But all the core fundamentals are,
Yeah.
they come from the same place.
Yeah, the influence is still there, but then you make it your own. Like and I've said for a long time, that's one of the things that I think distinguishes somebody as a knight is the difference between doing what I tell somebody to do and them having ownership of certain techniques. And it sounds like Ragnar's kind of got that thing going on where you kind of showed him how you get started, and he's like, yeah, but you know what?
Okay,
This will work just like
He's in much better shape than I am and can fight far longer.
Yeah.
I've got a
You
great
look like
gas tank.
Roman chiseled
Yeah, that'd be
statue.
without stop.
We all know who we're talking about. We could get him covered.
Yeah.
He,
Take it off.
he's fun enough. But he took my original fighting stuff that I went around with and is super successful with it.
Likewise, on the coaching side, having some coaches around that could take your style and then give you information that complements that. I had a discussion with Ronwalder this week, and he's like, okay, what can I do if I'm trying to learn to fight better as a two-sword fighter? And he picked up some stuff that I normally do, and he's like, just work on these couple of things. Don't change everything to learn something, but just try to make these small adjustments and do the stuff you're familiar with doing.
I was just excited on the same note to fight a whole bunch of different styles. I haven't gotten out of the mid realm a whole lot before, so this is the first time I'm getting to do a lot of fighting people that are in these different stances and things.
Welcome.
And yeah, there was very much the lining up and going, okay, I gotta actually figure this out. Like I don't have a built-in, instinct or program or idea of what to do. So like we've talked about it some. My Baroness is my knight. He's taken those stances so I can see them and we sort of work through it, but I haven't gotten to fight people that actually do that all the time. So that was really exciting for me. I'm looking forward to more tomorrow.
I got to see a lot of different things and some really great, unique things. Some breaking angles, some breaking timing, some harder shots than I'm familiar with, but they open up other things. So I'm seeing a lot of really nice stuff.
I was just glad it wasn't 1,000 degrees. Like it was like 70 degrees. I was like, yeah, 30 degrees colder.
Weather got real nice for us.
So that's something we've mentioned on the show before too. Is you guys mentioned it's like one of the great benefits of getting out to something like this and getting exposed to styles and stances that you've never seen before is that the more you are exposed to the differences, the more you understand the commonalities. And the people that execute best in our sport are the people that have an understanding of what is common about what we do. Like I said earlier with footwork, me and Baroness do that a little bit differently, but the whole commonality
They're
is
teaching the same thing. It's just different ways to do it. Like I explain to people, they're like, I don't understand. They'll do it like 1 second. That guy. Maybe Browns are telling you differently.
well, and
One it out of the banjos. Maybe this will work for you.
But when you see it from a few perspectives,
Right.
then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's the really important, piece of information there.
And the difficulty there too is when you get the similar information from various different sources, the hard part then becomes not trying to be all of us. Like and I mentioned in an episode a couple weeks ago, it's like we're like collectively we're all right, but individually like you take all that information collectively and some of that information is going to apply to you, but when you're trying to be all of us at the same time, all the information that we have is not contradictory, but it is conflicting in the aggregate, right? So you have to take all the information that all of us have and as Bruce Lee says, take what is relevant and take what you can work and what is good for your body type, what is good for your martial experience. Because, Baroness comes from a boxing background, right? That influences heavily his fighting style. I never had any martial arts before I got to SCA combat. So all of my martial arts is SCA related. And I've done a little bit of Taekwondo since then, and I'm familiar with some other disciplines, but I am an SCA fighter, and Baroness is a boxer who is
Not
doing
actually.
SCA combat.
A couple of martial arts, not actually boxing, but he did like Tang Sudo and some other ones.
Yeah.
So
And he did
Bunch of
all of
martial
that
arts.
long before he got to us. So
Yeah.
that influences his fighting style quite a bit. And everything he's going to tell you, yeah, is absolutely right. And it's absolutely applicable. But if you don't have that background,
yeah.
you might not be able to comprehend it. And you know, so some of what I have might be more applicable, and some of what he has might be applicable to my students as well. Take it all and just use what works.
So as you guys have traveled a lot more, how does fighting across the society, has it affected your calibration?
So, and we were talking about this earlier with calibration. At the highest levels of execution, the calibration really just evens out. You know, Atlantia has a reputation for being really heavily calibrated. Meridies has a reputation for being really lowly calibrated. But you know, when we get out in international competition at the highest levels, I mean,
It's all pretty similar. It's the middling guys may go up or down, but all your top guys across it, they're pretty similar. Like everywhere I go, most people take what I throw. Rarely do I have to.
Yeah. Every once in a while, it's like I was at Estrella. We had a foreign crown that was visiting while I was crowned, and we were fighting out and doing some pickups, and he hit me with a thing, and he's like, "You take it a little bit harder." I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit." And he's like, "Okay," and that was it. You know, and yeah, at that highest level of calibration, it is easier for us because we don't, at a certain level of calibration, we don't judge necessarily on how hard I got hit. It's whether or not I am bested.
You know you got.
I know it, yeah. You know when you got.
I'll be honest, as long as people are consistent, I really don't care what they call. Like,
Right.
as long as they stay around the same range.
I hit you as hard as you want, as often as you want, if that's what you want to.
Personally, I would like them to throw a little harder than they take. That's what I'm looking for. But you know, yeah, I don't care as long as they're consistent.
Yeah.
Be able to carry yourself.
Well, I say, and again, there's the, you know, don't throw a 3 and expect to take a 10.
And there are some people like that, but I get done quickly. You know, but
Yeah.
well, overall, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, and it's amazing how easily that like settles out. Like
That's
there's
right.
very little.
You would think like the first adult swim would be a big deal. Like there was like 1 or 2 outliers. Everybody else is like, oh yes, it's super consistent.
Yeah, and even with those outliers, it's like he wants a little more.
Yeah, as long as they're consistent, I'll give them every bit that they want.
I'll give him a little bit more.
And I just make sure everybody knows, like, hey, that guy takes a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And it's not nothing against them. That's
No,
like a
that's
lot of
what they
times
need.
it's just their local area. I'm like, that's super cool.
But admittedly, that is easier for us to level out at the higher levels. Mid-range unbelted fighters can tend to have a harder time with that because they get used to what their calibration is in their locality, and then they, you know,
Or inconsistent.
yeah,
They're taking hard and they throw, or they're throwing super hard and crying about getting hit. You know, like come on.
yeah. And when they go out and they fight people across the known world, and those people are not taking the same calibration, whether it's up or down, they just have a harder time knowing what to do.
Yeah. Some people like if you hit people, they don't take it. More than likely, it's a personal. Your service however you did that. Too many people are like, I think that guy's cheating. I'm like, it's super consistent. You probably didn't hit him hard. I'm like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and
Be generous, right? Like,
No, like,
Yeah,
let the guy actually
I
cheat per
consider myself a
person.
pretty decent thrower. If people said it wasn't good, it's probably not good. Like I was like, I've really not hit a ton of people that I thought was a great shot that they didn't take.
I had
Probably listed on one hand, you know, and it's not an unknown thing.
I just hit people as hard as I can.
I think people jump to it too.
It's not that hard actually, so no one really complains.
you know, and ultimately, I mean, I've never really considered myself that hits especially hard, but honestly, sharp, crisp. I mean, I mentioned before, I think the answer is not hitting harder, it's hitting better. Man, I just can't think of one person in the whole society that I thought was just cheating. That I thought was just like, this guy's just, I'm never going to be able to hit this person hard enough.
Really? Never?
I've never run into somebody that I just like, I just can't hit this guy hard enough.
I have a really
Sounds
hard
like
time
you have-
believing that. I honestly, I just have a really hard time believing that it's ever happened in the 40 years, or not, you haven't been fighting for like 35 years.
It's pretty close.
You're like 62.
Yeah, well, you're 63.
There's some social
Um,
caliber.
that makes
I mean,
me
there's
feel
some-
more.
There-
sure.
There's
some
not
people
a,
who don't want to.
even when you were younger and you didn't have like the gravitas that you have now.
You always had it.
Oh yeah. I was born with that. It comes
Before
with
he
the,
shaved.
it comes with the golden arm and the silver stick of rattan.
The blonde locks.
Yeah. I just don't ever remember. I just honestly don't remember one person that I can look at and say that person would just never take anything I could throw at him. I could just never hit that person hard enough.
Okay, how many people have felt that way?
There's definitely a
About
few.
guys Sean's spot.
Yeah, I don't put a ton of stock in it for
That's
me
right.
just because
Yeah, Greg looks at all kinds of people and goes, I just never hit him as hard as Sean could hit him.
Could just be me, but
Sean's just way more awesome than all of us.
There's definitely a social calibration aspect of that.
I just,
right?
the reason why I did that is because sometimes I think when people hear that, they're like, there must be something wrong with me because
That's how I deal
feel
with it.
that, right? Like,
Well,
Like,
and
man, I messed up again.
so and,
Like I
and,
committed
and I
that
think
guy.
I think I may have mentioned this on an episode before too about how I view calibration. And it is, if somebody doesn't take what I'm throwing, it's because I didn't do my job right. I did not convince them that they're struck well enough. I did not convince them that they're bested. And there is an argument to be made that that sort of attitude may encourage somebody else to cheat. And I don't know the truth of that, but what I do know is taking the ownership of the calibration on myself has spared me a lifetime of wondering who cheated me back in the 90s.
So the system you created.
you don't
makes
hang
it-
on to
yeah,
that
makes
and
it-
just
yeah.
like let it.
I just hang on to that and 30 years of festering and it's like
That's what keeps him going.
That's why you're here.
That's why
Great.
it's-
I'm fine with a problem with it. I mean, at first, it wasn't consistent, but nowadays, most people, they want more, I give them more. Most people are like, hey, don't hit me that hard. I mean, I'm a separate case, for two sorting for sure. I was like, what?
oh lordy lord.
Yeah. There's 2 or 3 people that I'm like, that guy requires a style blow. Not that I can't kill him, but he wants a good one, and I'm like, it's fine.
I can do better.
There
But
was-
I'm not mad about it. I'm just
I think for sure there have been people on the day who cannot be killed. But
Well, you
consistently
just called
forever, I did not say that. But I have heard
Well,
one
I
way
remember-
you can be anyone can be. That's actually Rauokinn used to say that anyone can be king, just don't take any
Yeah,
shots. Like,
I remember I was at Gavelop in 89, 90.
What's Gavelop?
Gavelop is an event down in Meridies, is on the coast in a Civil War fort. It
Okay.
is fucking amazing. If you get a chance to go to Gavelop, go to Gavelop. It is super, super, super fun. Yeah, you were literally fighting in a Civil War fort. And I was down there and I was fighting Kane, Duke Kane Redfeather, who's on the other side. And I'm eating out night. We like to take and deliver pretty stout. And yeah, I'm fighting Kane, and I'm like, whoosh. And he's like, oh man, that was good. I'm like, come on. Like, I barely touched you, right? And Kane leans in to be real close and goes, man, I'm not wearing any armor. I don't want you hitting me harder than that. It's that standard Anstioran twill leg armor.
the same level.
That's what he wore today.
Just wear that body armor.
your sweatpants for your body armor.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want you to hit me harder than that. I'm like, okay. And it was like coming from one of the heavier calibrating and throwing kingdoms in the world at the time. It was just really foreign to me.
I suffered with it because I usually travel with super light sticks. And some people are like, hey man, I don't require that. I'm like,
I give you whatever you want.
I open hard and just let me know if you want less.
Yeah, for sure.
We do have like one more topic that we brainstormed last night that we haven't gotten to, but I think at some point we should have a talk about like hitting them better, because I think there's a group of people that feel really disenfranchised because they feel like, and I'll say like it's smaller fighters. I won't say women, but a lot of them are women that feel like they're doing their best and they will never be able to hit that person harder.
Yeah.
Or the person will never admit they got hit. And I think that there's this hole in our rules that allows that to happen, and nobody has a good resolution for it.
Well, it's a problem in all games, just so you know. It's not an SCA thing, Emperor, that's the same thing, you know, and it's a little bit of sexism, it's a little bit of one-upsmanship. Some people just don't like to die, especially
Well,
people like they feel they should kill. And it's definitely a hard topic to broach with people. Some of that a lot of it requires outside intervention, you know. It's hard to do because not everybody can just put the wallop to people like John or myself.
Well, right.
There's
Like
definitely gears that I can just hit people with, but when you're in that 5 throwing range, you know, sometimes you just have to be clear about expectations, you know, like, and sometimes that's just them wanting to kill people, you know, they're just wanting to always win. I'm like, I'd rather lose more. It makes me at least want to practice some.
Well, but the people in this room aren't the problem, right?
No,
Like,
absolutely not.
His
But-
grace like takes almost anything. I don't even know if this is true because I've never asked you, but it's almost like your victory condition is not getting hit. Like, because you take almost anything, right? So if
If you don't
someone
touch me, I don't
touched
have to
you,
call it light.
it's done, right?
Yeah.
So I think I don't want to talk about it now because I think it's too in depth of a topic.
It could be a
But,
show. on its
Sounds like
own
you
on
should
its
put
own.
together a Coach's Corner episode
Oh,
on
maybe I
that.
should.
Yeah.
maybe
But
you
the
should.
topic we haven't gotten to is how to bring your own energy and not fight to the level of your opponent. Because that is something a lot of people struggle with.
I'm glad you said it first.
Yeah.
What's the question?
How do you bring your own energy to the fight and stop fighting to the level of your opponent?
This is
Because a lot of
less
people
of a problem for y'all high-end people
Right.
and more a problem for like me, who I tend to end up sort of matching the energy of my opponent. So I'll come fight one of you and
So I'll throw OG Sven under the bus again because everybody talks about how they always fight their best fight with Sven, right? Because you have this energy that you bring to the fight. But people need to figure out how to bring their own energy to the fight, so they don't need you to get to that level. And I think that's a thing a lot of people struggle with. And I just wonder what you guys think and how do you get past that? Like, have you always had your own energy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I never really ever concerned.
He's a snowflake.
Yes.
What's
No,
it-
I'm
I
joking.
don't even know what
That's a joke.
snowflake means. Yeah.
Somebody melts easy.
You're a
Oh,
special
somebody melts
snowflake.
easy.
That was
Oh,
a
then
joke. No, but really, what were you gonna say? Because I'm interested.
oh, you're calling me. What?
All right.
So I
Cut the commercial.
Yeah. I've never cared outside of my own view what other people are doing. So I'm bringing everything I have all the time, right? And so I don't know how to, and sometimes I think I can help bring other people's energy into the fight, and yeah.
Well, you do.
Well, it's messy 12 times. You just have to be selfish. You have to be out there fighting for gain, right? You know, like it's like for me, it's like when I'm working out, I'm not working out for other people. I'm out there for me, right? You know, I got to bring.
Well,
my
I don't know.
energy.
I mean, I'm out
I
there to
gotta make
fight
my-
and bring the best fight out of everybody.
But
like
I'm
without,
doing that for myself. So if I'm out there to improve, I want to get out there and give all that energy away, you know. Now, I downfight a lot of people because I want them to bring their energy, but a lot of it's just gotta be selfish. You gotta be going out there for yourself, trying to learn and get better. You're
yeah, I
not out
guess
there-
it's because I am striving to get the best
you,
fight out of
you
that
want
person.
you
right?
want
And
to
'cause I
bring
want-
yourself up.
yeah.
You gotta bring it out there. Some of that is as some people defeat themselves work out there because they're like, oh, this guy's better than me, you know. They bring that energy level down. You're like, oh, this get out there and just put the woods people
So
on.
there's
You have to enjoy it, and you got to be selfish for your enjoyment, right?
so there's no half-assing.
no, you
You've
got to
always
yeah,
full
no,
ass.
let's go.
All right.
Don't ever
Well,
half-ass a bunch of stuff, whole ass one
Whole
thing.
ass
Whole ass you're fighting.
You got to love it. And I tell people that's the thing. All the people that I've been friends with that I've met is because they immediately recognize that I was out there to drink from the fire hose and just have a great time with it. You know, what I got is what I got. But you gotta want it.
Well, and the other side of that too is like if I take a brand new fighter and I just unload everything I have on him, they don't learn anything, right? I mean, there's no benefit to either of us, you know, because I mean, what am I doing? I can prove that I can hit this person with a flat snap any chance I want to. So for me, I've got to, I always try to stay just ahead of where they're at. I usually do, I mean, I can tell within 3 to 5 fights what somebody is capable of. And
So sandbag the first 3. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
is that out loud?
yes, totally sandbag the first 3.
I was meant to run my
That's
personal
how you
notes.
fight Sean.
Usually if it's somebody that I've never fought before, usually the first 3 fights I'm doing evaluation. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what they're at, and you know, they might get a little bit more out of me out of that, but I don't need to destroy somebody 10 fights in a row to feel better about myself. And as a trainer, that doesn't do them any good. So it is a hard balance to find that. But I mean, ultimately, it kind of comes down to, you know, if you want me to fight you better, fight me better, right? I mean, you know, and I'm not saying put more effort into it, but I'm going to look. I've said many times, and I'll say it again. Fighting for me is a lot easier when people let me beat them on nothing but reputation alone.
Super good. I love it.
Man, that is just a lot less work for me. If you make me fight, I will. Man, it's just a lot less work for me if I can just convince you that I'm just better than you without throwing a stick. Like, that's just like, it's just a lot easier when you defeat yourself. So I mean, and it happened. You know exactly. You're laughing. You're laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking.
Yeah, that's how I won my last round.
Was that 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
this is a lifetime ago.
Everybody's like you.
I'll get back to it. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, you want me to give you a better fight, give me a reason to give you a better fight. But like I'm going to stay just a step ahead because I want you. You know, I don't want to blow any. Don't break your toys.
That motivation is like I had a home gym for forever. You know, I shelved it for like 4 or 5 years. It's not like I didn't want to work out. I just didn't get out there and do it. You know, and it takes a while to find what's going to make you want to do it. You know, and it just has to be about you. You've got to be like, this is what I'm going to do, and go do it. I was like, there's no one else to blame. It's a singular sport. You're learning from somebody, but that motivation has to come from yourself. And it's got to start at a love of fighting, not necessarily getting beat on, but just like you gotta love the try and impose your will upon other people, and then you have to enjoy that interaction to excel at this weird sport.
Well, and I'll mention something else about this too. I mean, part of that dynamic is when you have lower level unbelted fighters who are fighting at a roaring waste practice, right? You get to fight these top shelf fighters, and every time you get better, you know, we just step up, right? We put out just a little bit more,
And
right?
you end up having no idea that you've actually improved.
Yeah.
Because you're still just
Yep.
getting your
You have
ass handed
no
to
idea.
you.
Because your win percentage doesn't change,
And
and the
then
win
you
loss percentage is the
Go
only.
somewhere
Yep.
else and go, oh,
So we tell the story of Duke Titus, who used to go to mission practice when he was Uther Squire. He would fight Uther, Jade, Fabian, Havek, like all the best Dukes of the West every single day. He lost every fight for 2 years. And he's like about to quit. He's like, I can't do this. I'm not any good at it. And like Uther's like, no, you're getting much better. And he's like, I haven't won a fight in 2 years. And he's like, go fight at that other practice. Right. Clean their clock. Right.
Yeah.
So you can't, but I think that's super, like, there's one advice I would give to anybody ever trying to fight is always fight the best fighters around you. Seek them out.
Yeah.
Because like you can't, it's really hard to learn, like even on sometimes you can learn a lot from a peer, I mean a lowercase p peer, right? But you're not gonna, it's hard to learn. I don't know how to learn from fighting someone who's worse than me. Right? I don't know how to do it yet.
it's special guest me.
The dog says we need to wrap up.
That's right. Now that our special guest Maisie has finally showed up, Maisie usually shows up in the after show shows, where she is telling Rifkin how neglected she has been for the last 2 hours. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap up. You guys, this has been great. I don't know what Dave's doing in the kitchen over there. Food for the dog. Oh, I see what's going on. Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up. Thanks everybody for coming out this weekend and being part of the conversation. We have some tentative plans to do this again at Great Western War. Do another live episode from there and see what folks have to say. It's been a great conversation. Again, fireside chat. That's how this whole thing started, and I think we nailed it tonight. Thank you again for everybody that was tuning in and commenting live as we went, joining us. Yeah, mostly Granos. So thanks for everybody for joining us, and hey, everybody have a good night.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.